Not many people know this, but Vin Diesel appeared in a cameo for the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift in exchange for the rights to Riddick. Yep, that was his level of dedication to his character. In fact, Vin Diesel is Riddick and Riddick is Vin Diesel. He stated multiple times that during the shooting or XXX, when he looked into the mirror, he could see Riddick looking back at him. Now that a fourth movie, Riddick 4, is officially in the works, I thought it would be nice to explore some of the juiciest yet obscure facts about the franchise. Before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you these marvelous videos. And now let's begin. The Riddick location was a tough nut to crack. Pitch Black was shot in the Australian desert for 2 main reasons: budget and geographical appearance or topography. Crews worked 6 days a week, pulling 17-hour shifts, and it happened to be winter in Australia, so the temperatures felt chilly rather than scorching. Actors were spritzed with water to fake that sweaty look. Filming in the Australian outback helped set an unmistakable mood, and it's no stranger to Hollywood. It previously hosted The Road Warrior, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Crocodile Dundee. Vin Diesel later described Coober Pedy, the South Australian mining town where they shot much of the movie, as a bizarre patch of desert with almost no greenery in sight. For a New Yorker like him, who once lived in a building of 1,000 people, discovering a town of only 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere felt rather surreal, or at least strange. Nightfall. Originally titled Nightfall, the script came from brothers Ken and Jim Wheat, known for horror follow-ups such as A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, and The Fly 2, plus the Star Wars TV movie Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. Their early draft already included an alien planet crash, a looming eclipse, and monsters that hate light, but the convict character was a woman. Director David Twohy had previously tackled early concepts for Alien 3, so he recognized similarities between Pitch Black and Ridley Scott's classic. To avoid any blatant ripoffs, he changed some of the character arcs. According to him, even Alien featured fairly standard characters who simply reacted to the situation. In contrast, Pitch Black has 3 main players who end up in places that nobody expects. Balancing these evolving arcs while juggling blue screen effects turned out to be more complicated than he anticipated. It also didn't help that each of the 3 leads thought they were the star, creating ego flare-ups on set. Twohy saw a silver lining though, claiming that controlled egos can help drive better performances. He compared it to working on The Arrival, which only had Charlie Sheen as the lead. Thankfully, Sheen stayed clear-headed for that shoot. It wasn't planned as a franchise. Pitch Black premiered in 2000, and audiences responded so strongly to the Riddick character that producers expanded the universe with 2 more theatrical films, several animated features, video games, and novelizations. In late 2014, Vin Diesel even mentioned a long-awaited 4th chapter, plus a TV spin-off called Merc City, but Twohy recalled how none of that was on their radar during production. "I was just trying to get out of Australia with my skin," he admitted, describing the harsh shoot and the looming threat of the Bond company if something went wrong. He confessed that they had 0 plans for a sequel until they saw how test audiences took to Riddick. "We certainly didn't plan it as a franchise," Twohy said. "We were just consumed with trying to make the first movie work." The lenses. Vin Diesel wore prototype contact lenses to get Riddick's strange eyes. After day 1, the crew couldn't remove them. With no local eye doctor in this remote location, they had to fly an optometrist in from a town 3 hours away. Diesel compared the lenses to hubcaps on your father's 1960 Plymouth. The production team even rushed him to the hospital to confirm his eyes were okay. CGI specialists sometimes enhanced the glow in his eyes, but most of that glare came from those experimental lenses. After the movie's release, LensQuest offered a limited line of contacts that mimicked Riddick's signature look. They sold out quickly. No wonder Riddick had a cult following. Even though the eyes and the desert shots drew a lot of attention, Pitch Black became a sleeper hit primarily because of its unexpected hero Riddick and the nerve-wracking atmosphere it created on a shoestring budget. Nobody on the crew could have guessed that the film would spawn a whole saga, but audiences kept coming back for more, convinced that a convict with a fierce glare and a knack for survival had plenty of stories left to tell. With that, we check out the most interesting facts from the next movie. The Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. Dame Judi Dench's surprising involvement. Dame Judi Dench seems like the last person you'd expect to see in a sci-fi action flick, but she jumped on board as Aeron. In her autobiography, she admits that she never truly understood what was happening, though she loved the elaborate sets. Vin Diesel worked overtime persuading her to join. He filled her dressing room with flowers and refused to cast anyone else for the part until she said yes. She even wound up playing Dungeons & Dragons on set with Diesel, Carl Urban, and Thandue Newton between takes. To top it all off, her dress was made from crushed Swarovski crystal, adding another unexpected layer of glitz to her otherworldly persona. memorable and improvised lines. This movie has some sharp dialogue that sprang directly from the cast's mind. Linus Roach, who plays the Purifier, delivered the line, "I've done unbelievable things in the name of a faith that was never my own," without any prior script approval. Director David Twohy loved it so much he kept it in. Another gem comes from Nick Chindlin's character, Toombs, who says of crematoria, "If I owned this place and hell, I'd rent this place out and live in hell," adapting a famous quote by Charles Phil Sheridan. Chindlin also snagged the "now look at you, all back at the bus and shit" line. Because he liked it so much, he convinced Twohy to let him say it. Nick Chindlin's Toombs obsession. Nick Chindlin clearly relished his role as Toombs, the mercenary on Riddick's trail. He liked the part so much that he reportedly began drafting a Merc cookbook, presumably stuffed with gallows humor and outlaw recipes. He also had his share of on-set mishaps. Once, while performing a stunt on planet UV6, he accidentally swallowed one of his fake teeth. Despite these hiccups, Chindlin brought a unique energy to every scene, making Toombs one of the film's standout supporting characters. Hardcore production and bold aesthetics. The Chronicles of Riddick aimed for a big, operatic look, which demanded colossal sets, massive power usage, and intricate costumes. At one point, the production ranked as the third largest consumer of electricity in Canada. The Lensers, those eerie robed figures, were portrayed by performers skilled in body movement, some straight out of Cirque du Soleil. Their costumes and movements helped create an otherworldly vibe. The Necromonger statues drew inspiration from the sculptures of Adolfo Wilt, and the Necromonger culture itself borrowed elements from ancient Roman society. Even with the heavy use of CGI and set pieces, the team trained hundreds of extras and military drills to make those large battle scenes feel authentic. Expanding the Riddick universe. After Pitch Black found an audience on DVD, Universal decided to push forward with a bigger sequel. Writer-director David Twohy wrote screenplays for 3 potential follow-ups, complete with leather binders and a symbolic key for the first installment. The Chronicles of Riddick: Dark Fury, a short animated feature, bridged the gap between Pitch Black and this film, featuring Riddick, Imam, and Jack tangling with a twisted art collector. The final cut of the Chronicles of Riddick ended up with a PG-13 rating after an appeal to reduce an initial R rating. An unrated version later restored some of the original grit. Though Riddick's mythology ballooned into games, cartoons, and more films, David Twohy confessed that he was only trying to survive the Canadian shoot at the time. No one guessed that this hardened convict would become such a cult icon. With that done, we just have one movie left. Riddick, 2013. Vin Diesel got the rights by swapping a cameo. Vin Diesel made a short appearance in the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, but he didn't do it for fun. In return, Universal handed him the rights to the Riddick franchise. That deal let him call the shots for this movie, which he partly funded himself when financing hit a snag. Once the bank loan finally showed up, production could continue without Diesel digging deeper into his own wallet. Digital cameras with a fake film look. Diesel wanted the movie on 35mm film, but the budget wouldn't stretch, especially with so many visual effects. Director David Twohy added a subtle grain effect throughout to preserve a bit of that classic gritty feel. The end result blends the convenience of digital with the charm of old-school celluloid, which kept the story's dark atmosphere intact without breaking the bank. Same tough guy, familiar catchphrases. If you've seen Pitch Black, you'll recognize the line, "It ain't me you gotta worry about." Riddick drops it again here as a nod to his earlier adventures. The film even gives little throwbacks to how he introduced himself in the first movie. Richard B. Riddick, escaped convict, murderer. Fans love those callbacks because they remind us this unstoppable convict still follows the same moral code. He won't kill unless it's absolutely necessary. Boss Johns is way older than his son, sort of. Matt Nable played Boss Johns, father of Cole Hauser's William J. Johns from Pitch Black. In reality, Nable is only 3 years older than Hauser. Director David Twohy felt Nable's calm, rugged vibe was perfect for an older Johns, so he went with it. The character's desperation to uncover what happened to his son ups the tension once he finally comes face to face with Riddick. Carrie Hilson almost played Doll. R&B singer Carrie Hilson gave a solid audition for the role of Doll, but Katie Sackhoff ultimately landed the part. Director David Twohy still wanted Hilson in the film, so he created a small role just for her. It's a fun behind-the-scenes detail that shows how sometimes an audition's vibe leads to unexpected opportunities, even when you don't land the main gig. Rambo and Little Conan. Riddick pulls inspiration from iconic tough guys like John Rambo, Snake Plissken, and even Conan the Barbarian. Much like Rambo in First Blood, Riddick uses the planet's harsh environment to outsmart mercenaries. He hunts or hides, improvises every advantage, and refuses to back down. This survival gritty element feels familiar to fans of 1980s action flicks, but it still has that futuristic Riddick twist. Karl Urban's brief cameo as Vako. Though it's mostly a standalone story, Riddick keeps a foot in its own universe by giving us a quick appearance from Karl Urban, reprising Vako. It's a small reminder that Riddick's necromonger past still looms in the background. Even with all the new mercenaries, new planets, and new threats, the film doesn't forget Riddick's larger mythos, and that cameo helps tie everything together for fans who followed him since day one. Marvelous verdict. The franchise deserves much more love than what it receives. Riddick might be one of the most overlooked sci-fi sagas out there, but it packs a punch. It all started with Pitch Black, a survival horror story where Riddick is more of a side character, yet somehow steals the show. He shares the screen with a tough crew of people stranded on an alien world, filled with razor-toothed, winged beasts that only come out in the dark. By the end of it all, Riddick's charm cements him as the star, even though he's not exactly the hero. The Chronicles of Riddick cranks up the scope to an interplanetary level. We learn Riddick is the last Furyan, which instantly piques interest. In a big shift from the single-planet focus of Pitch Black, Chronicles tries a Star Wars-esque saga with necromongers led by a ruthless warlord who once wiped out Riddick's people. Unfortunately, that huge story doesn't quite stick the landing. Still, it's hard to deny it looks amazing. The set and costume designs, especially for the necromongers, scream epic. Chronicles may have stumbled at the box office, but it deserves credit for expanding Riddick's world with eye-catching visuals and new lore. Next comes Riddick from 2013, which circles back to the basics. Riddick's once again on a hostile planet, hounded by mercenaries and alien predators. Fans love that it echoes Pitch Black's mixture of horror and sci-fi, minus the outsized galaxy stakes of Chronicles. The supporting cast is once again top-notch, featuring Dave Bautista, Katie Sackhoff, and Matthew Nable. By keeping things smaller, the film gives us more of that ruthless cat-and-mouse chase that made the first movie so special. One reason this franchise does great is its flexibility. You've got horror, sci-fi, and action all rolled into one. Vin loved his role so much that he funded part of Riddick the 2013 movie himself when financing hit a roadblock. Plus, the character extends beyond film into animation, video games, and comics with the Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, widely praised for fleshing out the universe. It's rare to see a movie tie-in game that doesn't flop, yet this one thrives. Another perk is how little we know about Furyans. The Chronicles of Riddick teases that Riddick isn't a one-off creation of nature. In fact, his entire race was formidable enough to scare the necromongers into genocide. But the films only hint at Furia. The mystery is part of what keeps people hooked. Diesel has promised more in Riddick: Furia, and the dedicated fandom is ready to see if it reveals the planet's secrets, or even more hidden truths about Riddick. Sure, the films vary in quality, with the Chronicles being the least beloved, but the bottom line is that Riddick as a character works in any tight, high-stakes scenario. That's why this franchise, still very much an underdog, keeps folks coming back for more. If Furia sees the light of day, it may well confirm that Riddick belongs among sci-fi's elite. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.